got a record store. You don't see many of them around no more. I used to be on the radio, yeah, yeah, synchronicity. Yeah, yeah, baby, you and me. Every Tuesday night from 6 to 8, we would chaotically congregate. Yeah, but the boring haters couldn't wait. Yeah, yeah, synchronicity, baby. Yeah, yeah, thinking you and me, baby. Gotta recognize, de-escalate, and decode.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Dolls of Horror podcast. Today, very excited. We have a very special guest. We have actor, musician, author, radio personality, and podcast host, and all around great guy, Andras Jones, today. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Summer. I'm very glad to be here.
So honored to have you here. I have been following your career since I was 10 years old. So
Wow.
it's been 30 years.
I hope I haven't let you down, Summer.
Not at all, not at all. Of course, it started with me for Nightmare on Elm Street and then other movies, and then I discovered the music and fell in love with that, and on and on and on. I met you for the first time at Flashback Weekend in 2017.
Wow.
Brief
Okay.
briefly, I was too shy to say much of anything to you, but we got a great
Hmm.
photo op and you signed it for me. And that was kind of it. After that, about, I don't know, a few days after that, I actually discovered Radio 8 Ball on Apple Podcast.
Mm.
A- And I think it was pretty new on the podcast form at that time. And so I just
Yeah.
went all the way back to episode one and started listening from there. And that lasted for several years.
Wow. So you listened to a bunch of the Radio 8 Ball. You were one of the
I,
people. That's who you were. Who I was making it for. The few people who I thought who were could really follow the flow of it, because
hmm
I feel like the more context you could have, the
yeah,
greater the synchronicities were. I'd be so
yeah.
curious to know, what was that experience like for you? I mean, did what was that experience like?
It was amazing. It was awesome. Of course, being a fan of yours and what you do, both in acting and music, helped, not gonna lie. I'm always interested to explore people's passion projects, right? You might make your living as an actor, but might love painting more. And I love exploring those things. So to hear this show that you were so passionate about, it was kind of magical. I devoured the episodes. They weren't too terribly long for the most part, so it was easy. I have an hour commute to work each way. So
Hmm.
it kept me company, and I was able to catch up on that backlog really quickly. And that lasted until I fell off in early 2019 because I suck. I apologize.
No, honestly, a lot of things fell off. Or I feel like we should say that. So, Radio 8 Ball is a show that I've been producing and developing and just reveling in, exploring, experimenting with since like 1998. Started on KAOS radio in Olympia, and that's the station at the Evergreen State College where my father was a professor and led dream seminars, which we can maybe get into in one of the wild synchronicities of my being in Nightmare on Elm Street and growing up in a house where dreams were was like the family business,
Mhm.
in a way. Um, but now I went to the Radio 8 Ball, and Radio 8 Ball is a show where we answer questions by picking songs at random and
Mhm.
interpreting them like musical tarot cards or like dreams. And it started on the radio in Chaos and then developed into all these other places. And obviously, what you're talking about, Summer, is when it was a podcast on Starburns Audio, and then off Starburns Audio. And yeah, so now people know what we're talking about. And it is a sort of um, a magical game show. There's no planning. We don't know what the answers to the songs are going to be. We don't to the questions are going to be. We don't. The artist is usually very surprised by the experience. And for me, I'll just say my favorite thing it was being able to introduce so many artists who, for the most part, are pretty unknown
Hmm.
and provide a space where they, and in some cases myself, mostly other artists, uh, could really be listened to and have their music hold the kind of space that music holds for me in my life
Hmm.
and the way I listen, which often leads me to be uh, quite frustrated when I'm in public venues where an artist is playing music and people are just uh, talking over it and not creating the space where it can grow. It's
Hmm.
funny, a situation a lot of times that happens on that I had on Radio 8 Ball was we would have I had a pretty open booking policy. I kind of believed like if someone really wanted to be on the show and they were a professional enough musician to have 8 songs recorded, because you need to be able to come with 8 songs that you can perform that you wrote, and that, if you have an audience and you play shows, there's someone who likes what you do. And I may not like it. It may not be something that I want to listen to regularly, but in fact, the fact that I might not be into it makes me more interested in it as a Radio 8 Ball thing, because I don't, and if it's sort of like Close Encounters, like the aliens are choosing this one.
Hmm.
Like this is the Richard Dreyfuss of the bunch. Let's bring them on and in almost every one of those cases, by the end of the show, I did like that artist. If you give, because songs are just powerful, more powerful than the person delivering them, I think. And if you give, like, we are natural song singing animals, and if you give a song the space to move through a person in a room, and for the people in the room to like really be listening, and in the case of Radio 8 Ball, listening selfishly, not like, oh,
Hmm.
I'm trying to support this artist, but I really want to know the answer to this question. Even if it's not my question, someone asked, is my grandmother going to survive the surgery? And you're like,
Hmm.
everyone in the room is like, I want to know the answer. And when you listen to a song that way, you end up liking the song. The song ends up being pretty good, even if it's not the greatest song ever
Because then you have a
written.
personal connection to it.
Yes, and a bunch of all of this, most of everything that happens in our relationship with art or the world is happening up here. So we create a sacred space in here. There's going to be magical things happening. We can create a dirty, critical, cynical space up here.
Hmm.
That's the world you live
And that's kind of, I mean, that's why I fell off actually. I'm going to cut this out because I don't want to share this with everyone. But what had happened was, um, I don't remember which episode or who it was. It was like I said, early 2019. Either you were getting ready to go on a break or you just come back from a break. I can't remember. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but one of the songs and the questions, I don't remember, something was said that like really hit me too hard, and I just had to stop. And like, I hate using the word triggered because I'm a grown ass woman and we are all responsible for our own emotions. But I was like, I just had to like not. And I tried to go back a couple of times and my heart wasn't in it in that moment. So I didn't. And I feel terrible.
No, no, and you know what? I hope you leave this in, because I mean that is, first of all, you
I'm glad
are
you
a
didn't
grown
take
ass.
offense to that, by the way. I was
No,
really worried
you
about telling you that.
not at all. You are like, deciding to have a good boundary is being a grown, like, being triggered is not the problem. Being triggered and then not taking responsibility for taking the actions you need to do to make sure that you can go from a triggered space to an untriggered space, where then you can think about what you thought about was like, this is a little bit too much. And you were very in sync with the show. This is what I realized. This is kind of why I put the show on hiatus for the most part is around 2019, uh, it became very difficult to discuss a wide array of topics in a whimsical, open forum that Radio 8 Ball is, where you're supposed to be able to ask totally absurd questions, not offensive, but absurd, like, you know, will, uh, I don't know, will Jamie Lee Curtis ever marry me? Like, it's an absurd question. It's fine. I've had someone ask a question about Jamie Lee Curtis at one show
Mhm.
once, and it was actually more absurd than that and a little bit insulting, and I don't really want to repeat it. But
Right.
it led to some crazy synchronicities, and that's the sort of fun, whimsical environment that we create. But in 2019, and we know now there's been a lot of online censorship. There's been a lot of labeling of people. Like there's just been a lot of divisive
Mhm.
propaganda on
Mhm.
all through just throughout our intellectual ecosphere. And I, you know, I don't want to get anyone in like rattled in any way, but there was like a year or two where you could not ask a question about the thing that was dominating our lives, which was COVID and lockdowns,
Mhm.
without being, without everyone getting very nervous. And that's just one example. And I think it just became, it went from being a very hospitable environment for a show like Radio 8 Ball to a very inhospitable environment. And I'm not talking about necessarily even like culturally, but psychologically for every individual trying to navigate this cultural terrain of divisiveness. And, you know, most of us are nice people and we don't want to offend other people and we don't want to make people rattled. And maybe some of us like are a little bit rebellious and like to rattle a little bit, but not really like,
Not
you know,
intentionally hurt or
right.
yeah, just to poke a little.
Um, well, you know, because we all like to provoke our own, I think as artists, or even like just culturally a big part of I think of the culture I grew up in was, you know, George Carlin and just like Richard Pryor and
Mhm.
tweaking the culture a little bit. Like that's a fun thing to do. It's a good intellectual activity. We have a lot of work to do as a culture, and sometimes that adjutant is a good thing. Anyway, my point is that I'm not surprised that the show, something in the show had an edge in 2019 that it might not have had in 2018, 17, 16, 15, 14,
Mhm.
13, 12, you know. Blah, blah, blah. And I hope maybe sometime in the future, ideally with other hosts, my goal for the Radio 8 Ball show is different hosts than me working with that format because, well, because I've done it for 30 years and it's, uh, it's driven me crazy. So,
I found it particularly magical when you would release an episode from the old radio show. I loved those episodes so much.
yeah, chaos was a good time while it was a good time.
Yeah, I wish I could find them all out there in the ether.
Someday, you know, I have a huge archive of all of them, and if I, yeah, that's a huge project, but eventually I could see releasing those.
That would
Right
be
now, I'm in the middle
amazing.
of getting ready to release, of actually not getting ready to. I'm in the middle of releasing my new record, and so that's going to be at least the next year of my life is trying to help this record find the people for whom it is good medicine.
Absolutely. One more question. Is Radio 8 Ball still active? It's still going, right? Or no?
Well,
The
well,
podcast, the
podcasts are
podcast.
evergreen. They're out there.
Mhm.
And the app for the iPhone is out there, and that's filled with every song that's been recorded in the history of Radio 8 Ball, and a bunch of my own that I wrote and released during the time of creating Radio 8 Ball,
Mhm.
and that's like over 2,000 songs. And you can ask it a question and get a song as your answer. I recently I presented Radio 8 Ball at a dream conference in Ashland, Oregon. the conference of the International Association for the Study of Dreams, with a musical guest, Bart Davenport, who, if you know the show, he's been on the show a bunch, and
Yeah.
he's one of my favorite songwriters and performers. And we filmed that, and I plan on releasing that in sometime this summer, maybe probably, I'm hoping by June. But I still don't feel like we're in a place where
Mhm.
I you got to feel comfortable asking. I remember we filmed one a while back while Donald Trump was just had barely uh, declared his campaign. And this guy got up, this sort of goofball from Olympia, a sort of a wild and crazy guy who was really into Bigfoot and just wild, weird stuff. And he has a persona. He's a very very brilliant performer and interesting guy. But he got up and was like, is Donald Trump the greatest guy in the world? And I was like, you really think? He's like, yeah, I do. And we got this song, Summer, what is it? Summer in the City, and the cops are beaten or something. I don't remember what it was, but it was like a scary song about police state violence
Mm.
and da 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 da. And I remember I was, I guess I was particularly, I didn't think he was particularly funny even then, and I was very offended. And I mean, as a host, I did the show and
Mhm.
everything, but then
Sure.
how I was offended in my working through how I edited it, and actually tracked him down, and we talked about it in the interpretation after the fact, when we shoot him for film or for broadcast. There's a lot more leeway to be able to come back 6 months later and talk about the question and how it
Mhm.
relates to things now. And but when I think about it, the fact that he was able to ask that question was really important to the show. And
Mhm.
being able to work through my discomfort about it was important to the show. And that's like, you can't go into it because there is something psychological, like, it's not like therapy, but it's a psychological game, and you can't go into therapy withholding. I mean, you can, everyone does, but ultimately that is only hurting you in the process. Like, it's
Mhm.
slowing down the process. The more you can be transparent and be open with, you know, isn't it weird that I'm attracted to trees? No, seriously, I'm crazy attracted to trees. I mean, that's not me, but a whimsical question like that without someone saying, "Oh, tree rapist," or like, and then that blows the whole thing.
Mhm.
And that's in a lot of ways what my new record's about. Recognize, de-escalate, and decode is like our. That's the name of the record. Recognize, de-escalate, and decode. And our. It seems like, especially since 2019, our cultural response to things, and before, is is sort of the opposite, is to
Mhm.
project and escalate and then ignore. Like, someone said
That's
something,
my
I'm gonna
whole life.
right.
Ignore and it'll go away. Right? No.
Doesn't work. We gotta If you recognize that something's off, rather than escalating it to a crisis, if you can de-escalate it to a game, like radio, like,
Mhm.
oh, well, let's figure out why. Isn't that a weird thing to ask? You're turned on by trees. Even
Yeah.
if you're joking, the fact that you're thinking about that means there's something there.
Something happened
So,
in your head.
right, something, we're doing
So,
one with you
Andras,
right
why
now.
did you think of that example question just now? Are you attracted to
Well,
trees?
because I'm looking out my window, and
There you go.
there is a really gorgeous tree right outside my
Mm.
window. And you know what it is? And I will tell you, and we feed the squirrels here.
Oh.
And whenever we come out, so the squirrels are out on the porch, and then whenever we come out, they just dive. I don't know if you've seen the way a squirrel, and it just dives towards the tree, and it does look, they are about to, like, they want to get with, like, they love that tree. They're just completely, so that's what in my mind, that's what I was thinking about. Maybe
That's
I'm
amazing.
attracted to squirrels. I don't know. I'm just yeah. Hey,
I
you know
like
what? I think
critters.
that
Critters are cool.
one of the least pervy things in the world is to be attracted to nature. Come on.
Yes.
I was trying to think of the most benign thing, but you can, if you are in a projecting, escalatory, and ignoring mood, a certain person, it's not even the thing, a certain person could say they're attracted to trees, and someone in the room is going to be like, yeah, that proves that he was on Epstein's plane, fucker,
Now,
and
you
yeah.
won't I know you don't remember this because you didn't know me from Adam back then.
No, you don't know what I track a lot, so go
Okay.
on.
I was in your beta test for the app.
I do remember. Well, I would remember that because your name would have been in the. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that until you said that. But yeah,
Mhm. Yep,
how was the experience?
it was awesome. It was amazing. I discovered a lot of new artists, which I love. That's why I love listening to Pandora because stuff pops in on my
Hmm.
station that I never heard before, and I love it. I discovered a lot of new stand-up comedians that way because I got stand-up comedy stations. And I'm like, wow, who's this John Mulaney guy? He's funny. And so I love that. And so that experience was amazing. And it's really fun now that it is an app released out there. I have it on my phone too. I haven't used it for a long time, but I have it on my phone.
Well, I hope that I mean, I guess I don't know what triggered your response to the Radio 8 Ball
The
show at
funny
that
thing is,
point.
I don't remember either.
Yeah, no,
Exactly.
I have the same thing. I have the same kind of things with people. We went, that we went through a very weird time. It broke a lot of brains. These are very small. This is very small collateral damage we're talking about. But I do hope that with the app, when you are able to be your own Radio 8 Balls host and curate your own personal Radio 8 Ball show in a way
Mhm.
that does respect, by its nature, is going to respect all of your boundaries.
Mhm.
That you don't have some other person as the intermediary, you
Well,
putting
the
their own projections and ego onto the questions. And
the
I hope that it can be powerful for you,
yeah, the
even with like,
amazing and
yeah,
interesting thing about listening to the show and other people guesting on it and the music, everything is even though their question didn't pertain to you, the song may have.
yeah,
So you could
yeah.
still find a connection through the episodes, even if, you don't know who that person is or whatever. That's what it was so great about it, honestly.
Mhm.
So, anyway,
Yeah.
Radio 8 Ball is magic. I stand by that. I have to get back into it. I will eventually, I'm sure.
And let me just say, and the app is free. And in
Yeah.
case anyone is curious, it does not collect any information.
Mm,
I have no say in terms of how the songs answer the questions. It is really very random, and not that you should believe anyone who says it's private on the internet, but I honest, it's like when we get a really good answer and someone's like, "Oh, come on, you planned that." It's like first of all, it would ruin my whole experience of Radio 8 Ball if I ever
mhm.
approached it that way. And it's the same thing with this. Like uh, this synchronicity work, uh, you have to trust it in order for it to be real, and it has to be real in order for you to trust it. And so, I just that's those are two questions that people have about the app. Well, how are you making money off it? I'm not. And so if you're not making money off it, then what are you doing with my information? I have no interest in your information. Luckily, I have a wonderful and you know insane in the best way uh, artistic sponsor, who believed in this project so much that they invested a tremendous amount of money to make this resource available to people. And so I can afford to give it away because I didn't pay for it. And other than with 30 years of my life, which I was paid back every day in laughs and misery in equal measure. But it's definitely made me the person I am. So, yeah. Anyway, it's
Well,
free
it's
and
great
we
because,
aren't spying on you.
as someone as I'm always listening to your podcast, as someone who always wished that they could be on the Radio 8 Ball, it was awesome because you had your own Radio 8 Ball whenever you wanted it.
Hey, we could do a radio 8 ball.
Hey
You
man,
got the app?
I would
Want to
love
do
to.
Want to do it
No,
right now?
no, I want to talk about your album
Okay.
first. Well, first I want to talk about your music. I want to make sure we get to this first. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so first things first, we got to shout out this guy. All you get,
All you get.
which
When your cup is full, you're gonna still find reasons to cry. And though you pull the wool over your eyes, you can't deny that this is what you get. Yeah, maybe this is all you get. And you ain't seen nothing yet. But maybe this is all you get. Everything you want, except the thing you want most, is gonna haunt you until you give up the ghost and realize that this is all you get. Yeah, maybe this is all you get. And you ain't seen nothing yet, my pet, but maybe this is all you get.
this came out in what 18 was it? 19, early 19, right?
Yep.
Yep. And I remember I had it on pre-order and I had to fight my ex to get it back when he took it. And I said, you better bring that the fuck back right now. And I love this so much. How did this come about? What was your process in making this album?
Well, that was. Well, I've been making records for about 12 years when I got to that one, touring and just doing like pretty much full bore. People who are listening to this or watching this probably know me from mostly from Nightmare on Elm Street, which I was in 1988. And at that time, I was in a band called The Boon with my best friend from high school, a guy named Josh Claytonfeld, who went on to create the band School of Fish. And my being my taking roles as an actor ultimately led to the breakup of that band.
Mm.
And I really, even though I love acting on film and it is a tremendous honor, and I've looked back on this decision many times in my life as a, probably a big mistake. Because the opportunity to act in film is a very brief window. If you have an opportunity, you should go for it.
Mhm.
Whereas music is always going to be there for you. But at the time, I didn't know that. I was 19 years old and I was in LA, and I pretty much chose music over acting without specifically doing it, but in my actions, I did. And uh, so that after that, I toured the country. I had a band. We all moved up to Olympia, Washington, lived out of Olympia, toured, made records, did it all indie. And by about 2001, I was probably as strong in as a writer and a performer and a singer as I will ever be, and also still pretty young and good looking. But inside,
Oh,
I
you
was.
still are.
No. Well, no, I've seen the visual evidence. I appreciate if your kink is jowly old men, then have at it. Lyrically, uh, my point was that although that was the case, inside I had just uh, really, uh, I don't know, hollowed myself out in a lot of ways. Performing the songs that I was writing were a very high level, but they were also personally triggering when I would sing them. And for a lot of my touring, I would just be on the verge of tears while singing all the time. And it's that is an if you're a singer, it's just an unpleasant experience. I'm not worried about the embarrassment of it or the like being that raw on stage, but
Mhm.
physically, when you're on the verge of tears, you can't open up your voice. So it was a physically unpleasant. It got to be a physically unpleasant experience. But uh, I was very I knew all these great musicians in different areas, and there was a great producer, uh, musician, good friend of mine named Ford Peer, who lives in Vancouver. At the time, the exchange rate was also very good, and he knew lots of great musicians, and he was interested in producing a record for me, and I hadn't really ever given myself over to a producer before.
That name's
And
familiar. Was he on the show? The Ball?
Ford Peer was on the show
Yeah.
when we went up to Vancouver, and he was a guest. That show was a lot of fun. He's a really interesting, smart guy. We connected on the level of being fans of XTC and the band, uh, not the psychotropic
Substance.
substance. We never did that together. Maybe we did it separately. I did it separately. I don't know what he did. I can't speak for him. But he created these demos of these amazing orchestrations and arrangements for these songs, and had a vision of all these great musicians, many of whom I knew and others I knew of, to build to create these sessions in Vancouver. And I could afford it for what he estimated to do it. And so in the what would it be, the winter of 2001, uh, I went up there to Vancouver for for a couple weeks, and we recorded most of the album. And then I put it away, and then my wife left me, and a couple of really important people in my life died. And my friend Josh Claytonfeld of the Boone and School of Fish, he died very young,
Mm.
and I just didn't care about. The last thing I cared about was me. I didn't want to sell me to anyone. I didn't like. I just walked away. I just left. I left those tracks up in Vancouver. I walked like, yeah, for like 12, 13, 14 years. And then at some point, and I'd listen to them and I'd think about it, and they'd make me cry. And I just couldn't think about it. And eventually I kind of worked my way. I had to really bottom out. I worked as a bartender for a long time, for a while. I just had to get away from me in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
And Radio 8 Ball was a great way to do that, to stay with the music in a way that allowed me to just focus on other people's music and the magical experience and
And
all the
separate
synchronicity around it.
yourself.
Yeah, just to be in service
Mhm.
to it. That felt like that's what I needed to do for a while. It's just whether it was service at a bar, service at Radio 8 Ball, um, or sometimes spiritual or healing service to myself. Um, but then I reached out to Ford and actually the engineer Mark Lesperance, who had recorded it, and he's like, "Well, you're lucky. I do save these things, so I have it. It's going to cost this amount of money to like put it on another format because that format is like died 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But if you pay me X amount of money, I'll send it to you." And then my good friend Marshall Thompson from my band, The Previous, he just did a lot of work to excavate it and put it all in, like get it all into a place where we could work with it. And then we recorded some overdubs. And then I met this amazing artistic sponsor who was really passionate about my work. And they agreed. Her name's Erica Russell. And she basically became my record label to help put it out. And I got to work with this amazing mixing engineer named Sheldon Gomberg, who works with Ricky Lee Jones, and Ben Harper,
Mhm.
and Anara George, and a lot of musicians who I really like. And he's become really a great friend and a crucial musical collaborator. And but we were able to finally finish this record and put it out, and it was just getting. I needed to get it off of my just off of my life. Like, it was just this thing that was standing between me and my connection with being an artist. I think there's a little bit of artistic OCD that I have of like I really couldn't even think about making another record until that one was done.
Mhm.
Uh, I leave no man on the battlefield. And so yeah, and then the record finds you, but I didn't have like my ambition for that record was to finish it and to get it out. Didn't have an ambition to make it a hit, to tour it, to promote it. I mean, I did the things that you're supposed to do, but kind of half-heartedly. Most of the songs on that record, I'm not interested in going out and singing.
Mhm.
They're a little bit too, and some of them I really do love singing. But the difference being compared to the record that I was able to start working on once that was done, which is a record that is current to me, the ideas, the feelings, um, and that experience, that's where I am right now. Is on the in the process of releasing a record and realizing, oh wow, even though I fought so hard to get that one out, I really didn't give it a chance in terms of getting it to people.
This is I you know, the human brain, mind specifically, remembers the strangest things, the most useless, strange, obscure things. And when you made a post about All You Get on Facebook, and what you're saying now, it makes sense with what you said then. And I don't remember what you wrote in the paragraph, but I remember you opened the post with "algorithm be damned," and that's all I
Yeah.
remember about the post. But I've always remembered that, and every time I look at that record, that's what I think about. And now you're explaining this whole half heart, it all makes sense.
Well, this time around, my beloved algorithm. Oh, you sweet, sweet algorithm.
And I noticed
Please,
the
please pick
change
me.
in your approach to announcing it in that way too. Because you're like, look at this thing I'm super proud of, as opposed to look at this thing I made. I'm still proud of it. If it finds you, great. That's how I
Yeah,
took that.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Well,
okay.
I'm
So,
glad. But I remember like your post about it when you received it with the picture of the album, the spin it, like,
my old record player that my ex took also.
well, you could use a better player. That's fine.
I
Let
got
him
a
have
new
that.
player. I got one that looks like it's from the 50s instead of the
Okay.
20s, so it's a new style.
Okay. Nice.
It's
Nice.
red. Looks like
Uh
the front of the car Christine. It's awesome.
oh, good.
It's
Yeah, I wonder which which track from the new record fits that. Probably Trash would be it. Would I could see Trash, the song Trash blaring out at Christine driving down the road. Um, but that's a song from the record that I didn't write. The one song I didn't write by
Oh,
my
really?
great friend and another ghost songwriter, Paul Plagans, formerly of the band Greta, but he wrote some really amazing music in Olympia in the like in that time when I was bottoming out, and he was actually just getting well from a lot of illnesses that he faced, and he wrote some just fantastic songs, and that's one of them. But yeah, I guess my point is that seeing that post, that was like in a record that didn't have a lot of uh, big positive responses because I didn't really know how to put it out there
Mhm.
in the modern way. Yours was one of the high points, and I remember that very strongly.
And it just came up on my Facebook memories within the last couple of weeks, and I was like, "See, yeah,
Synchronicity.
synchronicity, man." And we spoke about that, I think, for a second at Spooky Empire, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I remember that." I'm like, "No, you don't. You got a million Facebook friends, but thanks for saying it."
No, Facebook has me in some sort of weird box, but I'm working on getting out.
So let's talk about your new record. Let's see it. I know you got it on you.
Okay.
I want to see the pretty record. Oh, look at that handsome man. I
Recognize,
love it.
de-escalate, and decode. This is
Oh,
what I looked
wow.
like when I started the record. This is what I look like now.
Now, I love who took your photo for All You Get photos for
Same
this? Because
person, same
really
artist. She's an amazing.
amazing.
She is a true like. I don't like to use the G word. Uh, I think genius is probably genius is just the way that we describe someone who can do something we can't do in a way we can't imagine they can do it.
Mhm.
And it just so. Uh,
Because this
Whereas for
photo
most,
right here on the back is one of my favorite photos of you
well, let
out
me say
there.
her name is Sarah Takako Skinner. And if you ever have the opportunity to be shot by her, the work will be amazing. The
Mm.
experience will be uncomfortable. And in the end, you will be very happy you did it. And you will not uh, worry about how much she cost because she ain't cheap.
I know that.
Sarah Takako Skinner, really, really an amazing artist and
Mm.
a wild and you know troubled, brilliant, crazy person. Um, Supremely charismatic. Yeah, can't say enough about her, but I should probably say nothing other than what I've already said.
Tell us about the new album, about the experience of writing those songs.
Well, I mean, I wrote the whole thing. I Let's see. The record's called Recognize, De-escalate, and Decode. This is obviously my first, not obviously, it should be obvious because I'm fumbling around. This is my first official interview about the record since I started the promotional process. So I will try and fumble my way through this. It's called Recognize, De-escalate, and Decode. I sort of describe what that concept is, and that
Mhm.
is the most important thing, more important than anything else that I can share about the record. My name, the pretty picture from Sarah Skinner, the songs on it, the amazing players. If I could get that one concept out to everyone who could hear my voice, recognize, de-escalate, and decode. This is the whole thing is my campaign for that concept. Because even if you don't like my music and you don't care about me, it's just like Radio 8 Ball. This idea of when there's a problem and someone's saying, "Oh, this is a big look at that person who's a de-escalate it," and then try and figure out what's really going on before we go off the handle and start, I don't know, running this process that we seem to be uh, loving doing and hating when it happens to us or someone we actually know. We're like, oh,
Mhm.
this is bullshit. Well, it was bullshit. The process is bullshit. So, recognize, de-escalate, and decode is my prescription for navigating those situations in a different way. And most of the songs on the record, first of all, I should say that I gave myself the rule of recording one song at a time. So sometimes a song would take a year or more to finish. Sometimes record it in a day. The song "Absolutely No Sense of Humor" on the record is a song that was recorded in one day with a great producer named Bruce Whitkin, who was he has a really interesting story. He moved out to LA with Johnny Depp from Florida as they were the band that together. These two kids, I think they were called the Kids, and they moved out to be rock and roll stars, much like me and my buddy Josh. And uh, and now he's part of the Hollywood Vampires, and he through Radio 8 Ball he fell into the show, and we got together for a day and recorded that one song. But some songs took a year or more to record, and each of them was written in a time where we didn't talk about my other podcast, The World Is Wrong, all about films the world is wrong about, but that
Which
concept
I listened
of
to an episode of, by the way, once you told me about
oh
it.
thank you,
I
thank
only
you.
had time to listen to half of an episode, but I went back
Well,
as far as the app would let me go, so I listened to episode 12,
about
whatever.
which one was that?
Um,
Which film?
Chameleon.
Oh yeah, Chameleon Street.
Never heard of it,
Fantastic.
but now I wanna watch it.
Yeah, and Wendell B. Harris was a guest on the show. Anyway, my
Yeah.
point is just that even though the show is about films the world is wrong about, this idea that the world is wrong, that there can be massive agreement about something that is just incorrect, and especially if it comes onto you, like uh, a false accusation of some kind. Uh, and it doesn't even have to be the kind that raises to the level of the sort of Me Too stuff, but just like the false accusation that, oh, that guy's an asshole, or she's a bitch, or what, and then that gets her and is like, wait, how nice do I have to be to not be that thing that now you've decided that I am? The world is wrong. And whether it could be like one loved one who has the wrong idea about you, or everyone you work with has the wrong idea about you, or everyone in the fucking world seems like they have the wrong idea about you. A lot of the songs are coming from that place, navigating different aspects of that. Even like the song that I didn't write, the song Trash, which
Mhm.
is Paul's song. Everybody said she was trash. Everybody said she was trash. You know, uh, implicit in that is that those people are wrong. No human being is trash. And not this woman who I'm singing about in the song. Clearly, she's awesome. The people who said she was trash, they're wrong.
Mhm.
That's just wrong. Um, so yeah, so that's what the record is about. Uh, but also, a lot of that sounds pretty heavy. Um, I don't know about. I want to know what your experience of the record was, but to me, all of the songs are trying to cheer myself up during these times. So they got to be funny. Like the ultimate thing is you get to the end of this fucked up experience and then you're laughing about it. Like, isn't it crazy that I muttered under my breath that this comedian who bombed before my show is a sad clown, and now this comedian is chasing me around this bar saying, "You called me a clown! You called me a clown!" And like, you're a comedian. How can you not get how funny this is? You know?
Mhm.
But when you're being chased by this like 7 foot tall ex-con muscle bound comedian screaming at you, well,
Mhm.
well, some it's scary. It's scary, and in my experience, the best shield is a song. For because at least for myself, because I can sing that song to myself to remind myself that this is funny when it doesn't feel funny.
Mhm.
So, and that song is available online as a video right now. The record comes out on April 19th, 2024, and the singles are going to be coming out pretty much every month between now and then. But the video for Absolutely No Sense of Humor with my good friend Andy Dick is currently available on YouTube. And that is a totally true story that is not about Andy Dick, but about this comedian from Olympia who has no sense of humor, absolutely no sense of humor about the word clown. So, what you're one of the few people who's listened to the record
Well,
who
first of all, thank you
also,
very much for sharing it with me. Um, Before release, I feel so privileged to have gotten to hear all 12 tracks. I mean, thank you. I really appreciate that. I really loved Get Out of My Head, of course. Great song. That one hit home.
single coming out January 19th.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Could be before or after this drops. We'll see. But it'll be around this time this drops, and I loved it so much. And I was um I was in the dentist's office
Oh,
when I
really?
heard that song, awaiting awaiting my fate on how much my broken tooth is going to cost me
Oh,
and when I can get it done. And
get out of my head.
uh-huh. Yeah, and I was just like, well, also like that also it meant different things to me than my current situation of sitting in the dentist, but I'm like, not now. This is not what I need right now. But so I'll always have that memory.
Okay.
And I would love to know what's Olympia's secret.
Oh, well, I can't tell
It's
what
a secret.
Olympia's secret. I mean, it's not, well, okay. First of all, it would just be bad showmanship for me to ever say. But I can say that for me, I wrote that's I think the oldest song on the record. I wrote
Really?
that song in the mid '90s for my band, the previous, and
Huh.
have just sort of carried it around and knew it was something, but didn't know where it really fit.
Mhm.
Um, and so Olymp that has meant many different things at many different times to me. So I guess it is that Olympia is a town of many
Mhm.
secrets. And although Olympia is the town that I grew up in and it's what I'm singing about, Olympia is also the land of the gods. And so I hope that people can listen to it both locally and globally.
Mhm.
And, sort of listen to it from the standpoint of what's going on in this town of Olympia and what's their gosh darn secret. And then also like think about the idea of what is the secret of the land of the gods? What is the secret? What are the deeper secrets that we don't even know? And in the song, again, coming back to this idea of what are the secrets that, if divulged, would make you call the person in this song names, and what would change everything, and what would make things so strange? What is the thing? Because you know what it is and you're not telling. Or I
Mhm.
know what it is and I'm not telling. Or the person who we love knows what it is and they're not telling. And if we really love them, we wish that they could just tell us because we know, you know, whatever you're
Mhm.
not telling, everyone who like really loves you knows. Whatever I'm not telling, everyone who really loves me and cares about me knows. They can just say, okay, you can keep trying to hide this thing that you're trying to hide. You're not hiding anything. Um,
Isn't that the truth?
so I mean, that's really what the song is about. Is that yeah, we all there is this. I guess the reason the song stayed with me so long is because it is so all purpose. It does work on a lot of levels at
Mhm.
times for me when I needed it. Sometimes Olympia's secret is that the people there think they're really nice, but they're really assholes. But that's true of every place that you know and love. Any place you grew up, anyone who's ever been there and just been there for a week and is like, oh, it's so great. And you're like, yeah, it's great, but
Not my
it's
hometown.
complicated. It's complicated. Really? What's your hometown? What's your hometown situation? What's your secret?
Well, my hometown, first 26 years of my life in Bakersfield, California.
Woo!
I know,
Oh,
right?
come on. Bakersfield's got some secrets.
Bakersfield has some okay music that came out, some musical history, that's for sure. And I back to Radio 8 Ball. I listened to your Derek Mears episode actually when I was ice skating, right? I was
Mhm.
actually going down to, I live in Chicago now. I was going downtown and going ice skating as I was listening to this episode. And he's my hometown hero. We've talked about this many times now. We have all the same theater friends. He's just a few years older than me, but we worked with all the same people out there in the theater. And I used to watch him perform improv when I was 10 years old at Lampos Pizza.
Wow.
I know. And I told him that, and he's like, and I'm like, yeah. So first time I met him, like, so it's really nice to meet you. So yeah, Bakersfield, California. Um,
That
growing
is a
up,
mystery town. That is a town with, I mean, just watch Fat City. So you have the sort of the, what is it Merle Haggard?
yeah, Buck
Yeah, so you
Owens,
have the
both.
Merle Haggard Bakersfield, but then you
Mhm,
have that 70s Fat City Bakersfield.
mhm.
You're talking about the 80s, Derek Mears Bakersfield. That's a time
Early
period where I
90s.
actually I guess early 90s.
I think what, maybe like 92, 3 maybe?
I had a wild weekend love affair that involved a car breaking down in Tehachapi.
My dad
So
worked there.
I have some very wonderfully almost sleazy memories of Tehachapi, which would have been a secret if I was the kind of person who had any shame at all. I should not have said that. But it was a long time ago. We were
Yeah.
young and it was all consensual, but still, it seemed like something out of like, I don't know, one of those sleazy 90s movies that happened in a roadside motel, was
Well, it's
Red
either
Rock
that or
West or
like a Friday the 13th or somewhat, because it's kind of a
no, no, no.
mountain
My life is
community.
not a horror film. No, my life is a comedy, a drama sometimes. The world is a horror film, but I have
Mhm.
somehow, through my own, I don't know, artistry, crafted a bubble of absurdity around myself and synchronicity, you know.
I love that.
And so there's always another way to turn it and laugh, turn the tragedy of the world and laugh at it a little bit, which will keep you alive, really.
Hmm. Agreed. That's why, let's going into horror, I always say it. I love horror films that have a touch of comedy, not comedies that are horror films. I would just want a little bit of laughter in there to release the tension. We just recorded an episode on Train to Busan,
Hmm.
and it released today at time of recording. And I'd never seen the movie. I had no interest in seeing the movie. I don't really like foreign films that much. I don't like zombies. But my friend picked this movie. I'm like, fine. And it hit me good. It hit me different. And I was like, this is a great film. And it was tension filled, but there were moments of comedy in the dialogue. And it really worked for the character development too. And so, yeah, that was a prime example, and I was editing that. I was up all night editing that last night so I could get it out today. So it's still fresh in my brain, but yeah, that was an interesting movie that made me feel all sorts of things, which I didn't
Yeah,
expect. I was kind of bitter about having to watch a zombie movie because I don't like zombies.
yeah,
But
me neither.
I was like, "Dude, thank you." And
For
that's
the
something that
comedy?
my podcast has brought me is my friends pick a movie they want to do, and I never would have watched this on my own. And sometimes I still hate it, like I think I will, and sometimes I go in knowing I'll hate it, and I don't, and that's really really great.
We did a film on The World Is Wrong called The Believer. Have you ever seen it? It's Ryan
Mm-mm.
Gosling's first film.
No.
He plays, it's based on a true story about this Jewish kid from the Bronx who passed himself off as Nazi skinhead, wanted to and was a part of this Nazi skinhead group,
Mhm.
and he was one of the very active, uh, you know, New York Nazis. And a writer from the New York Times found out that he was Jewish and told him he was going to out him. And he said, "If you out me, there's going to be trouble. I'm going to kill myself." And he wrote the article, and the guy, uh, at least in the movie, and I think this is true, he blew himself up in a synagogue. So it sounds like it's like a dark, dark fucking movie. But we had the director on, and he's like, "What? When we were making it, this was a comedy, and when you watch it, you can kind of like you had to really get into the film's wavelength to see how it's funny. But then
Mhm.
it's actually really funny, and I also feel like it's weird, but it's like I think it's funnier if you're Jewish. That's been my experience. Like my co-host Brian, who's raised Catholic, uh, he was really unable to see the comedy in it.
Mm.
Whereas my friend who was one of the producers on it, who's Jewish, and myself and the director, all sort of got on the level of like, yeah, there is a funny way. There is something pretty hilarious to this movie. It's just super, super subtle. So if you're looking for dark movie, and that's kind of the way we approached our Halloween. Like we did a lot of movies, our Halloween movies were horror films that people don't think of as horror films. So like we did Bob Roberts, the political
Mhm.
satire from
Mhm.
Tim Robbins. Like that's a horror film that people don't think of as a horror film. Or so another one is The Rules of Attraction, the film that um, Roger Avery made based upon the Bret Easton Ellis novel. Like it's not a there's nothing horror. There's nobody gets murdered in it, but just like the people are terrible and terrible to each other, and so it's sort of it portrays the kind of horrific world in which we actually live. Um, and I think so. That is the way that our podcast approached horror, which may give you some sense of sort of how I approach horror, because
Horror films make me feel good. Um,
I
for the
love it.
most
That's what I've
part,
learned from this world,
for the
that
most
there are
part,
people like
because
you.
especially like your film, um, it's
Well,
so
nightmare.
far from reality that it's it's a fantasy, right?
And I get
Whereas,
that with nightmare. It's a
yeah,
dream.
right. Also, I mean, okay, let's go out of Nightmare. Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers,
Okay.
Chucky. Um, really not gonna happen. I mean, someone could kill you, but they're not immortal, right? And they're not going to keep coming back from the dead after you kill them over and over
Right.
again. Not happening. It's fantasy. It's fun. It's exciting. I gravitated towards horror when I was 8 years old and become completely obsessed with it. My first movie was Suspiria, and I'm like ballet and witches. Oh my god, magic. Um
Nice.
right. And then it was all horror all the time since 1990 because of Suspiria. That was my gateway horror movie. And then, those are just fun movies. Now, people say, oh, you must love true crime. No, I hate true crime because it's no longer fun when it's true. I don't take enjoyment. I love learning about the history, but I don't take enjoyment in those stories like I do in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
You should be listening to Summer Flynn. She's not going to steer you wrong. Straight up.
Yeah, but when people ask me for horror film recommendations, I need more information. What are you looking
You,
for?
for you, it's Contagion. For me, it's Bob Roberts.
Yeah. Also, what are you looking for in a movie? Do you like psychological? Do you like dolls? Do you like slashers? 80s, 90s, new, 50s? I mean, what are you in the mood for? And I can pick your perfect movie, but I need a little more information. Because if somebody wants a movie like, I don't know, Talk to Me, I can't tell them to go watch Terrifier and have them enjoy it.
Give me The Haunting, the
Oh,
original Haunting. Things
oh,
like that. That's my, that'll get me.
it's
I like the others.
the others.
I liked
The
the
Nicole
new,
Kidman others?
yeah, the
Okay.
Nicole Kidman others, and I
Mhm.
liked The Haunting of Hill. I think I like ghosts. Ghosts are good. I like ghost stories. I like ghosts in general. I feel like whether or not they exist, I have a very good relationship with my ghosts.
And so you would probably like the Conjuring universe, is that
I haven't gone there. Is you think I would?
I think you need to go there.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
think it
Thank you, doctor.
they're based on the Ed and Lorraine Warren case studies. So there's some element of fact in there. So, and they're just really, really good. They're well made. They're well acted. They got some really great stars. The first one has Lily Taylor, I think, is the right name in it. Um, just a great cast. The second one is filmed, I believe, in Scotland because it's based on a case out there. Of course, were in charge. They had something to do with the Amityville cases and Annabelle and just all these really interesting supernatural cases. So I think you should delve into the Conjuring franchise. I
Okay.
think you would enjoy
Okay. Well,
those.
you got my other like great performances and
Mhm.
ghosts. Um, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and
And
if
dance
you do your
sequences. Do they have a lot of? No, no. I'm kidding. I don't. I'm not really
there
into
is
dance
a I
sequences.
think there is actually a dance in there.
Really?
We used to
Okay.
do something on the show where when there was a dance in a horror film, we call it Dances of Horror. And me being a dancer, of course, I love that stuff, right? I might consider your anything a dance as
It
well,
is. That is. It
a
is.
little
I mean,
bit.
cinematically, it functions
Mhm,
like a dance sequence,
mhm.
sort of like Kevin Bacon's warehouse romp in Footloose.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So that's what that is. And I don't know. There's something about the Nightmare, my relationship to the Nightmare fandom has changed a lot from where it started out. At the beginning, it was a little bit embarrassing to me
Mm.
because I wanted to be a musician, and at the time in the '90s, if you were in movies, weren't really seen as as a serious artist. Like you could be a musician and be in movies, but it was very hard to be in movies and then go over to being music without being perceived as a Rick Springfield, Bruce Willis, Don Johnson type. Which is fine if you're that successful, a movie star, but if you're not, it's just a weird undercutting. Um, and it might have even been true back then. But now that we're all just older and not so locked into whatever we defined ourselves as when
Mhm.
we were still trying to define ourselves, now it just feels more like a lifetime relationship that I've had with people like you. Like you found my stuff when you were 10 years old. It would have been weird if we had struck up a relationship and a friendship. But now it is a lifetime relationship, even though we haven't known each other all this time. Like
Right.
you did, not a lot of people bought Porch Music, my CD from my band in 1990.
Yeah.
You got
And
a
me
hold of
being a
that when you were a
physical
kid.
media
Yeah.
person, even before streaming was a thing, I had to have it, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it makes more sense now to try and integrate who I really am, which is a songwriter and a musician and a lover of songs and synchronicity, with this nightmare world that always kind of intimidated and embarrassed me. Intimidated because
Mhm.
I always think you're darker and cooler than I am, and embarrassed like I don't want to just be the guy from Night. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome the guy from Nightmare on Elm Street.
You're
That
not a
wouldn't.
one-trick pony.
Uh, yeah, no. I wish I
Even if
could
it's
do
a
it.
damn good trick, that's not you.
If I could, if I was smart, I would have just started a line of karate dojos in 1988, and I would
Yes.
be Ralph Macchio right now. But I that would have been a lie, and that's not who I am. So I can't. I've inspired Rick has inspired a lot of people to get into martial arts. They come up to my table, and I ask them if they will protect me if someone attacks us because I would be incapable of doing so.
Yes.
So
Well, I know I
here's to
have to
all the
let you
little Ricks out there.
man, I know I have to let you go because you have another engagement to get to, but I
Well, this
would
has been a lot of
love
fun.
I've had a lot of fun. I haven't even talked to you for like a quarter of the things I wanted to discuss. Will you come back sometime and play
Yeah,
again?
part two. Yeah, I'd
Yes.
love to. I
We will
would love
talk
to.
about your book. We will talk about porch music. We will talk about Nightmare in your acting career that time around. And maybe we'll play some Radio 8 Ball.
I love that.
Okay. See, this is why I wanted to like wait because I really wanted to get to this music stuff because this was our focus to
Okay.
because of your
Well, I
new
appreciate it.
album. And it's so great. But I would love to have you back. This has been so amazing. Will you do me a favor and just, say, hello, baby?
You got it. Hello, baby.
Thank you. This is the
That
big
comes from
bopper.
the Big Bopper.
I
Oh,
love me some
Chantilly
Chantilly
lace,
lace.
oh,
Hmm.
chase,
The
oh,
first
the
time I heard that
space.
song was in a horror movie too. It was called Parents.
That wasn't it in Christine. That has to have been in Christine.
No,
Should have been.
Christine. Christine had a lot of like bad to the bone
That's
type
so
rock.
much. It should be the '50s. What the
I know.
hell,
Hmm.
guys? George Thorogood wouldn't have. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
It's my pick.
I love, 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 love this experience with you. Thank you
Yes, me too.
so much. This has been amazing. I have wanted to actually invite you on for quite a while, but I was intimidated.
Well,
So thank you so much. This has been great. I can't wait for part two to discuss those other things.
yeah,
Everyone, please check out Andras's music. There will be a song closing us out. So don't go anywhere.
yeah. Check out the albums available for pre-order at my website, previouslyyours.com. Please provide the links in the
Oh, yeah.
to that pre-order. I'll share it with you. I hope I come to a town where you are and you come out to one of the shows and we can share a room and some music together.
Yeah. That would be a dream for us all, honestly. Thank you so much, Andras. Really appreciate your time and can't wait to do it again.
Yeah. Thank you very
Okay.
much, Summer.
Okay. Bye.
you said just tore me apart. I thought I could take it, and maybe I can, but when I run out of juice and I don't have a plan, I made up this mantra to get back on track. I don't think you like it. Oh no, I know you won't like it. So get out of my head, get out of my heart, get out of my head, get out of my heart, get out of my head, get out of my heart. I meant what I said from the end to the start. You taught me so much, and now that I know, I don't think I like it. Oh no, I know I don't like it. So get out of my head, get out of my heart, get out of my head, get out of my heart, get out of my head, get out of my heart, get out of my head, of my heart, of my heart, of my head, of my